Since '85 we've stood our ground, though trophies passed us by. From Craven Park to Wembley Way, with East Hull grip we fight. Now we rise, our heads held high, proudly wearing the red and white.
The Robin Pod is powered by Budget Tyres Auto Centre. Make them your first and only choice for a vast array of vehicle services. They are reputable East Hull-based car specialists and dedicated to providing quality services at reasonable prices. And don't forget, they are trusted by the players, club officials and supporters of Hull Kingston Rovers. Find them at 146 Leeds Road and ask them about the exclusive discount they offer Hull KR Rovers Forever members.
Welcome to the latest edition of the Robin Pod Weekly, your go-to podcast for all things Hull Kingston Rovers. In this episode, we build up to another giant of a game as Rovers prepare for a huge playoff semi-final showdown against St Helens at Sewell Group Craven Park this Saturday evening. There's team news to dive into with the return of McIlorum and Burgess to the 21-man squad. We give our thoughts on the newly unveiled 2026 home shirt, a special design celebrating 100 years of the iconic club anthem, Red, Red Robin, and react to news that Man of Steel contender Mikey Lewis is fresh from signing a brand new 5-year deal, which will keep him in HU9 until 2030. And Steve Tilley's back with another edition of Robins Revisited. Plus, we answer, as always, all your questions during question time. It's a packed episode ahead, so let's get started. Good evening, Gary. Good evening, Scott. Gary, I'll start with you. How are you doing?
All right, mate. How are you?
I'm very, very well. Scott, it's been a while since you've been on the Robin Pod. You've been busy?
Yeah, very busy. Yeah, I know I've had to, there's been a couple of episodes you've asked me to do that I haven't been able to get on with. But yeah, I'm glad to be back. Thanks for having me again, as always, mate.
Yeah, I tell you what, Scott, it's funny because I just looked back at since 2021 and I was looking at how many semi-finals the Robins have been in over the past few years now. I've counted 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 semi-finals, let alone finals that we've then also played in. Wow. There's a reason why now we're at the point where there's an expectation level around the club about where we are now, and it's not arrogance, it's not overconfidence, but like the players have spoke about, this is normal now, and it's a weird feeling, Scott, I suppose, for someone who's been following the club for so long and enjoyed watching the Robins in the 80s when, you know, when they'd get in a final, and we're back to them days again.
Yeah, it's absolutely fantastic for the club, for the fans, for the players, for everybody associated with Hull KR. When you start getting to regular semi-finals, like you just mentioned, that we have, you know, that many in the last number of years, you then have to turn those semi-finals to finals, which we've started doing. But then the most important thing is turning those finals to wins, isn't it? And we've got one in the bag this year already with the Challenge Cup, and obviously the League Leaders Shield's a different competition. But trophies are now starting to come back to Craven Park, and it does feel like the 1980s again. Somebody asked me the other day that, you know, does it feel like the 1980s? Well, it was a very different game back then. It was a different sport, different physiques, different calibre of player. But the fact that Hull KR are now winning trophies again, it's phenomenal, isn't it? Isn't it brilliant? You know, and I'm just glad that so many people can witness it like I did. Even young kids nowadays, you know, you see the stand full of, you know, young kids and young teenagers nowadays. That's what I was when Rovers were winning trophies in the 80s. And I'm just glad that it's for them as well, and for my kids and your kids. And it's fantastic to see Rovers now turning semi-finals and finals into trophies as well. Long may it continue.
Yeah, and Gary, there's if you go back to 2021, when we played that semi-final against Catalan, of course, the Super League, the playoff semi-final. Since then, there's one player who's played in every single semi-final and every single final. Do you know who it is?
For Rovers.
Not for anybody else.
Yeah, bit of a daft response. Wow, there'll be people now shouting through their headphones going,
Yeah.
it's so easy. No, I don't know off the top of my
Yeah,
head.
𝗀𝗃𝗃 has played in every
Wow.
single semi-final and final since 2021. There's another player who's played in nearly as many games, and he missed one. Scott, who do you think it is, and what game do you think it was when he missed it?
Struggling.
I'll tell you what. I'll give you it. It's Mikey Lewis, and which game did he miss?
Was it the semi-final against Wigan at Edinburgh?
No, well, it was a semi-final, but it was against Huddersfield at Ellen Road.
Yeah. When Lynette played half-injured.
Yeah.
Well, was
that's
injured.
Correct. Yeah, so, I mean, so if you look there, if you go back to 2021, the two players, Mikey Lewis, 𝗀𝗃𝗃, who've now, if you look at where they are in terms of contracts going forward and being linchpins to the side, they've been in these big games, and you can understand why they're such big players for the side, because they've played in the big games. Don't get me wrong, they've tasted success, but also they've been there when it's been, not the best times as well. So yeah. So you can understand why they are sort of such big players in that side. Of course, we look ahead, Scott, to another semi-final on Saturday, St Helens, a side that has at times flattered to deceive, but also a side that, of course, crucially won an important game. There's a big saying that they never write off the Saints, and they showed that against Leeds. It was a funny game, that Leeds Rhinos game, wasn't it? Because many people thought the Rhinos would be the team that comes. If you look at the form towards the back end of the season, many Leeds supporters were, saying that the Rovers bubble had popped and Leeds were going to be the side to get to the grand final. Of course, they didn't get past the St Helens side. But that was a funny game, wasn't it?
To be honest with you, John, I only saw the last 15 minutes of it. I'd been down to Watford to see City. So I'd got back from Watford and I turned it on for the last 15 minutes. And obviously Leeds were 8 points up or whatever it was then. And it was just like, I couldn't believe what I was watching. But you're right, you never write off the Saints. They can pull out something out the bag. They've got enough good players to do so. And yeah, they have flattered to deceive a bit this season. It perhaps hasn't been Saints' best season. And they don't look very, very structured in attack. Defensively, they look superb. That's typical Saints. But they haven't really offered much in attack. So that try that came in that last minute there where they went through 16 pairs of hands, that's very unlike Saints this season. They're very, very, take teams on down the middle, 5 drives and a kick and try and get your field position, very much like Rovers do. But to come up with that try at the end I couldn't believe what I was watching. It was just absolutely nuts, wasn't it? But you never write off the Saints, and you can't even on Saturday night at Craven Park. Never ever write them off, because they've got too many good players that can still go win matches without a doubt.
Gary, when I recorded the Robin Pod last week, of all the sides who were in the playoffs, it was St Helens that I picked to play. Now, I didn't expect St Helens to get through in them circumstances, but ultimately, if you look at that Leeds Rhinos game, I mean, Saints were pretty average for most of it. And don't get me wrong, they came up with a miracle try at the end. I think it was 16 passes, but they haven't been great during that game whatsoever. And don't get me wrong, they did come back at the end. But this isn't the St Helens side that I'm fearing, and I think they will feel lucky to be in the position that they are in.
Yeah, there's lots of different trains of thought on this, isn't there? That they've got the momentum now. They've got naught to lose because of what happened to them on Saturday. Like Scott said, and I hate the phrase, and it really bugs me. Never write off the Saints. At the beginning of the season, all the Saints fans were calling for Wellens' head, weren't they? 5 or 6 games in.
I think they still are, to be fair.
Yeah,
I think,
look where they are now. I'm a bit like you. I'm not particularly fearful for Saturday night unless it's 4 points difference with 5 minutes to go. and we're winning by 4, I think we'll smash it. But yeah, that's the only time I'd be nervous if it was close at the end, because Saints are a team, aren't they? And Rovers are getting this way. Saints are a team who play to the very, 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 very last second of a game, and they've done it. They've done it in that, Wellesby scored that try, didn't he, a couple of years ago when the ball came off the back of off the post and stuff. So they're used to it, So that's the only time I'm only fearful for them. But yeah.
Yeah, and Scott, if you look over the course of the season for St Helens, they've not been a side who've been throwing the ball around that much. So I think that's why that try came as a bit of a surprise. If I remember when the Robins went to St Helens, we came away that victory early on in the season. We dominated that side, and to be fair, I think we let them in too easily with those points that they scored. But they've not been a flamboyant side, and I think that's why that try which they scored surprised a lot of people, because it hasn't been something that we've been used to seeing during the course of the season so far.
I guess when you're in the last play, though, they've just got the penalty, they've kicked a touch, they've got one play to win the game. All they can do is keep it alive and hope for the best, isn't it? I mean, it could have gone through 2 pairs of hands and they knocked it on. There is that possibility. Harry Robertson did amazingly well, Harry Robertson, but there was, and if you count, there's 6 missed tackles on him from Leeds players.
Crazy, I think Jack Connell was 4 of them. Jake Connell was 4 of them, sorry.
Yeah, and that's not bagging Harry Robertson, because what he did was unbelievable. He did brilliant for his team. But Leeds could have nailed him 6 times and they failed to. Saints have done brilliant keeping that alive. 16 pairs of hands, and then the score on the overlap on the far left. But I think Leeds should have dealt with that far better than they did. But credit to Saints, they kept the ball alive. 1 play, got the score, got the win.
I bet you two were like me. I bet you two were like me, weren't you? Watching it on the telly, and as soon as it left Saylor's hands when he did that back pass out of his back, and you could see the overlap on the telly, I bet you both stood up like me and were pointing to the left-hand side. They've got it. I was jumping around them, and it was absolutely brilliant.
You can see Ryan Hall's reaction, because Ryan Hall's out of position and he's sprinting over as best as he can to try and get in the defensive line. But it was that pass from Saylor that did it. He could have flicked that out the back and it could have gone to ground, but it stuck, didn't it? You chance your arm in those situations, and it came off for him.
Well, all I'd say as well is with Ryan Hall, and I absolutely love him because what he did for the Robins is absolutely fantastic. But we saw to the back end of his career at the Robins being caught out of position a few times in sort of no man's land. He didn't know whether to come inside, didn't know whether to hold his position. All that being said, Ryan Hall, he was left in no man's land, and that was because of the left edge defence that really didn't, give him anything to do. But like you said, Gary, you was watching it. You could see it happen. You could, as soon as that pass from Saylor went away, you could just see it. And it's funny. Apparently, I saw a message on social media, a post, and it was from a St Helens fan, and he said, "Why does he?" I've always wondered why he does these in the warm-ups. So apparently he practices these passes all the time. And Scott, that's the beauty of rugby league, and we've seen it, haven't we, as a Robins fan? You never know when that moment might happen. That's skill. And that's a professional sport, isn't it? You practice for them one moments. We saw it in the Challenge Cup final at Wembley, that moment, and that was that moment from Saylor, because that pass released him. And I know we're going to talk about Robins, of course, but we can't dismiss what a fantastic try that was.
You hear people talk about doing the 1%. Now, that's what Saylor did with that ball there. The ball comes to him. Many might argue he just throws the ball just to keep it alive. Maybe he does, but it sticks. He tries the 1%. He tries the 1% wonder pass, and it comes off, and that 1% gets Saints the win. But there's much more work done before that as well. Even in the early, when the ball's transitioning through hands, Saints don't even control the ball very well, but it just bounces right for them and bounces up into the hands, and you're thinking they're going to get a bit of a look here. They're going to get a bit of a bounce for the ball. A lot of stuff had to go right for that try to be scored, and it did. But I think by Saylor and Harry Robertson doing the 1%, that's how they ended up scoring the points. Chancing their arm, doing the 1%, and it gave them the win. Fair play to Saints. Fair play.
Yeah, And Gary, I did have a wry smile. I mentioned it earlier when that draw went in because a lot of Leeds Rhinos fans. I mean, do you know what? That was their first playoff game in, I think, 8 years.
2021, I think he said, didn't he? He said it's their first playoff game at their ground since. Maybe 21, or maybe maybe I've heard something incorrectly there. I think it's their first playoff game at their ground for a while, wasn't it?
Yeah. Well, there was in the middle eights, not that long, So it's absolutely staggering. And what I found, that's why I had a wry smile, is because with the Robins losing 2 out of the last 5 games come the end of the season, and then of course Leeds turning us over like they did. Fair credit to them, but a lot of Leeds fans sort of thought the Robins are done. We're going to be the team in the grand final, and do you know what? I think the players started to believe the hype as well. I think they started to believe that they were better than actually what they are. So it was nice to put them back in the box and just say, see you later, Rhinos. Another season of failure. That's what I had. Like I said, I had a wry smile at that result.
Yeah, it was good. I think if you were because there was only 2. Well, there was lots of rugby league this weekend, weren't there? But there was only 2 Super League games, the playoff games. I think if you were tuning in as a neutral, trying to just catch up on telly or whatever, and you watched that game, I think you would be hooked now because it was a really good game of rugby league to watch. No points in the first 20 minutes of the second half or whatever it was, 15 minutes maybe, and then it all just kicked off at the end, didn't it? It was absolutely brilliant. And I think like you, John, and probably like a lot of Rovers fans, judging by the forums, it was great to see the Saints try in the last minute with the last play. That's absolutely brilliant. And then to watch the Leeds players afterwards, I thought it was absolutely brilliant.
Well, Jake Connor, of course, sat there in tears. I tell you what, though, Scott, as good as that was, and that had the world of rugby league talking, it had people in sport across the world talking because an ultimate finish. Now we're talking about ticket allocations. We're talking about statements being released at 10:37 p.m. on a night time. Rugby league's got a great way of shooting itself in the foot, hasn't it? In terms of when we think we're selling a sport to the masses, we just become a sport that's full of ridicule. The situation with Wigan and Lee and what's going to happen tomorrow night is absolutely ridiculous, isn't it, Scott? Because we're now, we're talking about the owner of a club rather than the prospect of an exciting semi-final, and we're taking away from the product, the players on the pitch, which is actually what we tune in to watch. It's such a shame it's come down to this. And Derek Beaumont's been on the Robin Pod. Do you know what? When I've engaged with him and spoke to him, he talks a good game. He's been, but I just cannot get my head around the last few days what's happened around the semi-final versus Lee and Wigan.
That statement that he released last night, 30 paragraphs, 5,000 words. Anybody who's taking the time to read that must be bonkers. You must have enough time on your hands not to be able to do anything else in your life. We've just been talking about the St Helens try and how that put rugby league. Look at this. This is what rugby league's about. This is what the sport of rugby league can do. And then Wigan and Lee's matches this season, there've been some absolute humdingers. The 1-0.
The first game of the season.
Look at that. 1-0. Yeah. Lee beat Wigan at Sports Village as well. So the Lee have won 2, I think, haven't they? And so it was all lined up for a really, really good game where 2 good teams with both teams have got top players in their ranks. It was going to be another battle of the borough. Let's watch this. This could be an absolute classic. And then what happens? The game of rugby league, I don't want to say it's been brought into disrepute again, but it's for all the wrong reasons, isn't it? Ticket allocations and League fans sitting in the Wigan end, apparently they could do that in the league fixture, but now they can't do it in the cup fixture. And they're being allocated 5,400 though anyway.
Wigan have already given more than what they had to.
Yeah, so they've already given 10% legally. Yeah. Legally, they've got to give them 10%. So legally, they've got to give them 2,500. The fact they've given them 5,400 is unbelievable in itself. So why he suddenly wants more, and I know he's complaining about, well, people like to watch the game from the sideline, so they could give us a block at each end near the Lee end and stuff like that. You don't need 7,000, 8,000 fans. The whole point of Wigan finishing second is that they got a home fixture.
Right. Yeah.
So at the end of the day, if you want more of your fans in the ground, finish first or second. If you come third to sixth, you're going away from home, aren't you? Simple as, and you get given what you're given. St Helens have got, 1,300 tickets for us on Saturday night, I think it is. 1,200, 1,300. Are Saints complaining? I know it's a lot closer, Lee and Wigan, in the same borough, but, Saints aren't complaining that they've only got 1,200, 1,300. They're just cracking on with it because they know it'll be a spectacle and a great game. I just think Derek is taking the attention away from the match and yet again banging it onto him and just controversial reasons, as it generally always is.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, Gary, there's probably a bit of a wider context here, isn't there? Because when we look at the reshaping of Super League and the power struggle that seems to be going on, what's being alluded to is that Wigan are not in favour of potentially a 14-team Super League, for example, and obviously Derek Beaumont, the Leona, is in favour of that. He seems to be, him and Nigel Wood seems to be sort of in each other's pockets, and there seems to be something going on which is bigger than this game. And it's such a shame at a time when I'm reading about the NRL grand finals and all the stuff that they've going on, just at a time when we've got a real chance to put our game on the front foot. Now, I've seen the reports down under. It's ridiculed. We're being ridiculed as a sport, as a game in the Northern Hemisphere. And actually, what we should be talking about is the fact we've got two teams going toe-to-toe, Lachlan Lamb, the one with the most assists. We should be talking about the fact that it's a local derby and there's going to be 18,000, 19,000 there. And this is the game before the grand final. And we're not. We're talking about somebody moaning about ticket allocations, and this is all the behind-the-scenes stuff that should be going on. It's just it
should be going on
it
behind.
Just blows my mind. This is happening, and what I want to bring it to is I'm so thankful as a club. We've got people like Paul Lakin, Willie Peters, Neil O'Gill, who actually run this club very well. Craig Franklin, people who've got professionalism down to a T. They've got the club at the heart, but they know how to manage it professionally. And we're not dragged into these situations now. And it's great to see the professional level at which we operate compared to when you see other sides and what they're doing right now.
Yeah, he's done it a few times, hasn't he, this season? He did that little dance behind his coach at Catalans, didn't he? He got
so the point is, Gary, you can't do that and then try to be somebody else in the next. You know what I mean? In one breath you're this, and then the next breath you're that.
And I was thinking about it on this afternoon's dog walk, thinking, I was a bit like you, thinking, thank God we've got really nice people at the top of our club who wouldn't go out and you wouldn't see Mr. Hudger or Mr. Larkin making those kinds of comments and statements. It smacks of too much wine on a Tuesday night, sat on the toilet with nothing to do. It's and in his statement,
Gary, we've all been there.
and in his statement, he starts talking about WhatsApp messages, and you think to yourself, "Come on, you're meant to be the owner of a professional rugby league club. Come on, sort yourself out."
Even if there are WhatsApp messages between Derek and Chris Ledlinski and what have you, well, they're personal. They're not for public consumption. Did you know what I mean? It's just, you're the owner of a rugby league club. Be the owner. Owners are not seen. They're in the background. They're in the shadows doing the job for the club. And I think nearly every other Super League owner, chairman do that. I think there's only Derek who loves being in the limelight and makes it all about him. I think every other chairman of every other club just do their job. They own the club, they run the club, and make sure the club runs to its maximum potential. Derek just loves the limelight, doesn't he?
I wonder if there's also a little bit, because there was a. I know we'll get to speaking about Rovers in a minute. I wonder if in the beginning of the week there was something about a bug going around the Lee camp, and only half their team training. And I wonder if he's just trying to take a little bit off the team. You know, I don't know. I don't even think he's that deliberate. I think he just does stuff, doesn't he?
Well, all I was thinking is, do you know what? Whatever happens, because then at one point we had, it was really, Leeds Rhinos might be introduced back in, and it was like the one thing that was definite and that will not change is the date of the grand final. That will not be moved. So that's when he started to go, this is a load of nonsense because the grand final date's not changing. Teams need 6 days to prepare as a minimum, or 5 days, I think, minimum to prepare. It's just, absolutely crazy talk. So let's bring it back to the Robins. Scott, the 21-man squad was announced early today. Joe Burgess is back, which is, of course, a welcome addition. He's been missing for the last few games. And the mercurial Micky McIlorum, who seems to be able just to, I don't know, get himself ready for the big games. Of course, he suffered that injury back in August, that ankle injury, which put him out. At the time, it was reported he might not even feature in the playoffs. Of course, we know he's retiring at the end of the season. He's going to take up an assistant coaching role at the Catalan Dragons with Joel Tompkins. But when you look at that squad, I think, Gary, you said, is it number 2 to 18?
Yeah, I think I said in on the forum. Yeah, if you put Arthur Morg in number 1 spot, you know, you've got your top, you've got your first 17, 18 players there, aren't you? Because they're all numbered 1 to 18, and that's what you want, isn't it? With one game to go, really. Scott, that's phenomenal, isn't it? To be at this stage of the season.
Yeah. And you only missed number 19 because that was Danny Richardson, and he's left the club, or is going to leave the club. Number 20 is 𝗂𝗡𝗂𝗏 Tanganoa. So in theory, you've got your top 20, 21 players, all fit, all raring to go. You know, it's fantastic to see at this time of the season that you haven't actually really got any sort of, I'm sure a few of the players, there might be a few niggles still hanging around at the end of a long, hard 27 and Challenge Cup run grueling season. But to have every single player available to you is phenomenal to win into hopefully the last 2 games, isn't it? It really is.
With 16 days off as well.
Yeah.
That's brilliant.
But if you look at Saints squad, I've looked through Saints squad. They're really strong. I don't think they've got any players missing, as far as I'm aware.
I think
one
Carl
or two,
Felt,
maybe.
Yeah, I think Carl Felt, he's missing, which was interesting because he had a back spasm, and then the St Helens put a picture of him on social media lifting weights, and it was like almost like, well, if he's had a back, how's he doing? So whether he's dropped on that. But if you look at the 21-man squad for the Robins, what it does then do is leave you scratching your head a little bit, because there's some big players, important players who will produce over the course of a season are going to be missing. And we're not going to be in that squad on Saturday come kick-off. Which does leave big questions. Not many people thought Micky McIlorum would be back. He is. Of course, Bill Leyland's not named in the 21-man squad. So that pretty much says he is fit and he is going to play. I think Willie Peters said in his pre-game press conference, he's got to tick a few boxes, but he's playing. Joe Burgess is definitely playing. Willie Peters has already said that. Oliver Gildart's now back. We know he's a first-team player. He goes straight into that side. As soon as he was back fit, well, he was straight back in. And it goes back to that thing of what we've mentioned on the Robin Pod many, many times. Willie Peters knows his strongest 13, and he doesn't deviate that. You've got to feel sorry for probably Scott, someone like Jack Broadbent, who has admirably not only just filled in. I think it's a real disservice to say he's filled in, because I think he's actually excelled. He's won games for the Robins. So he's not. But I can't see a place for him now where, if I'm in Willie Peters' mind, I can't see a place for him, for example, to be in that side come Saturday.
And I think Jack's big problem is that because he can play so many positions, be it fullback, centre, wing, wherever you want to play Jack, he always does you a job. But you're always going to pick your first choice fullback, centre or winger ahead of him. You are. because that's just what happens. You always pick your strongest team. Now, many might argue that Jack's earned a place in the starting 13/17. It maybe has in many people's eyes, but there's not a chance he's getting in ahead of Gildart or Burgess or 𝗬𝗏𝗧. It just isn't. Now, you might argue that he could nick a place on the bench, one of the 4 on the bench, and bring him on as a utility in many different positions. But I don't think Willie will go with that. I think he'll go with his 3 forwards, and then it'll be Litton, McIlorum, or whoever he chooses to start in the hooking position. I won't be surprised to see him start McIlorum again for 20, 25 minutes, and then he brings Jez on to do the damage for the next 60, 65.
Yeah, so if you look at the lineup, Gary, I've got my my side: 𝗬𝗏𝗏𝗀, Davis, Hiku, Gildart, Burgess, Lewis, May, Sue. I'm agreeing with Scott. I think it'll be Micky McIlorum will start there.
Yeah,
a 20-minute stint. That's what he was doing at the start of the season. That was the game plan.
That's what he was brought in to do.
Jared Ware-Hargreaves, and then your second row was Dean Hadley and Batchelor. Elliot Minchella at loose forward. Obviously, now this is where the interchange bench is the big one, isn't it? Because you'll say Litton goes on there, then you've got Reece Martin, 𝗀𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃, Jai Whitbread, Sam Luckley.
So
somebody's going to miss out, aren't we?
Who's going to miss out of them?
Yeah.
And this is where, I mean, Tanganoa, don't get me wrong, apparently he's been fit for the last few weeks and not been picked. But we've seen what an impact he can make when he comes on, especially in the second half, and he makes them run from deep. It's a big conundrum there, isn't it? Who goes on that bench?
Yeah, it's. I'm personally, I always think 𝗀𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃 should start, but because I think he's just fantastic. I think he's he always gets his head through the other side, and you don't know what's going to happen once half your body's through. I think he's an absolutely fantastic player. Yeah, I mean, you can easily say, can't you? 21 Jack Brown, 24 Eric Doro. They'll be out, I think. And then it's a toss up between, like you just said, one of those other forwards. I don't know, because we've debated this before, haven't we? And then something else has happened, and it's been great, But I think your first 13 there are spot on. You two, I agree with everything you've said. Yeah.
So what you say is, Scott, I mean, Reece Martin is an out-and-out second row who can play centre as well. So he gives you a bit of cover there. Sam Luckley's an out-and-out prop. He can't play second row. He plays prop. Whitbread's played second row now and prop. So he gives you that versatility. And then Tanganoa is pretty much out-and-out second rower, isn't it? And if you look at the versatility there, basically Martin and Whitbread are in. Of course, you're going to have either Litton or McIlorum on the bench. So the big one is probably Luckley or 𝗀𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃. Which way you want to go with that? Because I can't see them players playing any other positions.
I think what Willie loves the rugged workman-like forwards as well, doesn't he? He likes the blokes who are going to carry the ball in all day for you and do all the dirty work and make all the tackles. Jai Whitbread's in that group. So is Sam Luckley. I don't know. It's either Reece Martin or Tanganoa who misses out. I think
do you think Reece Martin? Yeah. I think because I think Reece Martin, not only does he add versatility in terms of the second row centre spot, but he's kicking as well.
Yeah.
That's the
It could be that Tanganoa misses out. Now, I personally wouldn't like. I think Tanganoa brings an extra dynamic to our attack, especially if we bring him on. Early second half when teams are tiring and he comes on those angled runs and he runs at pace. I think he causes mayhem in defence, is Tanganoa. But I just think that Willie loves the really tough workman-like players who will just carry the ball in for him all day. And Luckley does that, Whitbread does that. So I think it's either Martin or Tanganoa who'll miss out, and it's more likely to be Tanganoa. But I think I would rather have Tanganoa in the 17 than not. It's a real conundrum. It's a real tough one.
And to be fair, Gary, I mean, 𝗀𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃, his early season form was absolutely outstanding. If you look at the final third of the season
I don't think he's had the impact that he's had over the last probably 2.5 years. Really, I think he sort of. Whether it's been the opposition defence got a bit better, whether he's not been getting the ball at the right times. I think when most Rovers fans now will be able to write down their 13, their squad, and I think there's just a couple now where there'd be, and I think it'd be Tkanoa, like Scott said, Tkanoa or Sam Luckley. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens on Saturday. Unless
I think there was some when we played the last game against Warrington, I think there was some mention of Sam Luckley when he came on, like he always does. He always comes on, doesn't he? And he dropped the ball, didn't he? Or he did something, knocked on, and didn't Willie Peters take him off straight away.
He hooked him straight away, didn't he?
Yeah, so that might go in against him. But yeah, out of those two, Martin and Tkanoa, I would play Martin just because of his versatility, like you've said. We're all agreeing with each other. What's
well, unless like Scott said, unless someone else is in the background that we don't know about, and we'll see what we. The great thing about the 21-man squad and team selections is until you see them players named on Saturday at 4:30. Or 4 o'clock, you don't quite know, do you? So let's see. We've mentioned Joe Whitbread because he signed a long-term contract. Other players who signed long-term contracts are James Batchelor, Elliot Minchella, Jez Litton. Scott, Mikey Lewis signing a 5-year deal. Since the last Robin pod, he's going to be at the Robins until at least 2030. He's made 129 appearances, scored 526 points. He is an absolute linchpin of the side, and I'm absolutely delighted that the Robins have been able to tie him down for so long, because it's great news not only for Hull Kingston Rovers, it's great news for Super League, it's great news for Northern Hemisphere Rugby League.
Yeah, great. It's fantastic for not only the club but for Mikey as well, to give himself a long-term stability for a contract for him as well. I'm sure I'm sure he'll be probably named as a marquee player by now. I would have thought in regards whatever he's earning, his salary, I'm sure he'll be down as a marquee. So maybe only a percentage of his wages counts on our cap, with him being a local player as well. It's great for Mikey. It's great for the club. It also protects the club, I guess, to a certain extent, should Mikey's form again improve to what it was last season and early this season. If the NRL does come knocking, it means that an NRL club would have to pay a transfer fee for him, which protects the club. But ultimately, it also protects Mikey as well and gives him a long-term future. And if Mikey's prepared to dedicate 5 years to the club, that just shows, how committed he is to Hull Kingston Rovers and the red and white cause. I mean, the kid bleeds red and white, doesn't he? Yeah, and if an NRL club do come knocking in the end, you're never going to stop him going there, because even the club have said they'd never stand in his way. But it also does protect the club in regards to receiving a transfer fee for him as well. So it's great for the club. Most importantly, it's great for Mikey. And most importantly, it's great for the team and the fans of OKR that Mikey Lewis wants to stay around for another 5 years. Amazing. Fantastic.
Yeah, Gary, Willie Peters, he was answered the question about, in the build-up to the St Helens game, about whether there was a clause in his contract, whether he could, if an NRL team came in, that they'd release him. Willie Peters was quite firm in the fact that he said, I believe that he signed a 5-year contract to be at Hull Kingston Rovers. And I think that's because there's a belief around the club that this is an opportunity to build a dynasty. This isn't a flash in the pan, win a couple of trophies and then tail off. This is a real opportunity to dominate rugby league in this country, in Europe, in terms of European Super League. And Mikey Lewis is signed up to that. But, like Scott said, it just gives the club a bit of leverage that if someone does come in for him, hey, he's still got 3 years on his contract. If you want him, here's the fee.
Yeah,
so
I think it
just protects everyone, doesn't it? It protects Mikey because he's now securing a contract for a long term. It protects the club because if someone does come in for him,
there's an opportunity then to bargain and negotiate a transfer fee. And hopefully at the same time, actually, the Robins are doing that well. We don't even need to entertain an NRL bit. So it's just good news. It's just, like, do you know when we're talking about professionalism and we're talking about just doing the right things, going about your business, and I think this is another example of that.
It's that. I mean, the Paul Larkin, didn't he, spoke about the triangle, didn't he?
Gary, Lakin.
Well, you know what I mean. You know what
Larkin,
I mean.
Lakin, tomato.
You know what I mean. I've been away from Hull for too long.
Potato.
Yeah. He speaks about that triangle, doesn't he? About business on the field and off the field. And I think the signing of that 5-year extension ticks all 3 boxes, like you just alluded to. You know, it's great business. You know, so if he does need to go, they'll get something back. It pleases the fans and it pleases the players, especially Mikey Lewis. I think we'll probably see. This is my own personal opinion. Well, obviously, it's my personal opinion. My own opinion is, I think it's probably been affecting him for the last 2 or 3 weeks, or 3 or 4 weeks, and I think we'll see. I think we'll see something special from him on Saturday night. I really believe that. Back to his old proper running self.
Yeah, I tell you what, Scott, because one thing that I've heard from the people who watch Rovers, and a lot of people have suggested that he's been playing with an injury for a while. If you look at some of the games where he's gone off for 10 minutes and he's come back on, he seems to have been sort of labouring a little bit. Have you seen that, Scott?
You've seen a little drop in Mikey's form over the last few games, without a shadow of a doubt. He doesn't seem to be having the impact that he has had earlier in the season. You remember that injury he got on his shoulder? Was it in the derby? Or was it before the derby when he got everybody thought it was a bit of a stinger, and he was carrying his shoulder. I can't remember. It was before the derby. He scored a try though in the game, didn't he? Yeah. But for the whole game, he was carrying his arm down by his side. And he carried on. He carried on playing. He stayed on the pitch for the entire game, and then in the following game, he seemed to be still carrying it a little bit. And I'm just wondering if he's got some kind of shoulder stroke, upper arm injury that they're injecting. He's good enough to play with, but you know, it's not 100%, and he's still hampering him in regards, you know, control of the ball and things like that. I'm just surmising there, but. That injury where he's carrying his arm by his side, he seems to be doing it for 2 or 3 games, and it just seemed injured to me, and as though he was trying to protect it quite a lot. I don't know.
That's why I think, though, Scott, as well. Do you know why they've made such a big thing of the League Leaders Shield and playing to that and winning that is because I think there'll be a number of players who've probably been carrying knocks. And they've been playing to the point where they know that if they win the League Leaders Shield, they'll get a 16-day break. Yeah. That's where they'll be able to then to look after the players, nurse them a bit better. And I think there is certain players who undoubtedly, you asked Willie Peters, who are playing with knocks. Yeah, they can get through the games. Yeah. Now this is given an opportunity to have some proper rest, recuperation, treatment, and I think Mikey Lewis might be, and I think Gary's maybe right. Actually, this might suit some players, in particular Mikey Lewis, because I think what we've lost in maybe Mikey's explosive game, we've gained in his control of the game. Yeah. So what he's been able to do is then set himself back, and the maturity that he's showing now is Don't forget, earlier on in the season, he was derided for being antagonistic, for getting in people's faces. Actually, when we come to the final third of the season, we've seen him start being a bit more controlled in his play. We've seen the positional kicking a bit better. We've seen him. He's still got that step and that spark and that ability to go at the line. But I do think we've seen a maturity. And Scott, I think for me, he is going to be the man of steel. I do genuinely think he's going to get it two years in a row because I just look at his form. Yeah, it's interesting one, the man of steel, because the other players who he's up against, like Jake Connor and Jack Field, is
Connor's come to the fore in like the last sort of 10 games, really, hasn't he? He's played really well in the last 10 games for Leeds, really. 𝗫𝗓𝗡𝗋 has been, well, you know what you get with 𝗫𝗓𝗡𝗋, don't you? He's a fantastic fullback. He's lightning quick. I think 𝗫𝗓𝗡𝗋 relies a lot on Bevan French playing. If Bevan French plays, 𝗫𝗓𝗡𝗋 plays well. If Bevan don't play, Jai can just be your average fullback. I think they complement each other brilliantly, Bevan French and 𝗫𝗓𝗡𝗋. And if one of them isn't playing, I think the other one doesn't tend to have the same impact as if the other one was playing with them. I think the only worry for me is, as I said, in the last few weeks, if he is injured, Mikey has dropped off a little bit, whether that'll affect him. How many players have won Man of Steel 2 years on the pop? I don't know. I don't know how many times it's been done. Will it go to Jake Connor? Don't know. Because you even start losing the voting after about 12 rounds, don't you? Because you start seeing the points add up, don't you? And who's leading the Man of Steel. Then all of a sudden, it just disappears, doesn't it? And you don't know who was in the top 3 and who was voting for it, and you know who's taking control of who's going to be chosen to be the Man of Steel.
Yeah,
I don't know. I've just got a feeling it's going to go to Jake Connor for some reason. I'd love Mikey to win it 2 years on the pop. It'd be brilliant. But you know, I've just got a feeling it's going to go to Jake Connor. I don't know why. It's just one of those feelings, good feelings.
Yeah, and that'll be announced on the 7th of October, which is, of course, a Tuesday night which is in the lead up to the grand final. Hopefully, the Robins are going to be in the grand final, so it'll going to be very interesting to see. And of course, Gary, Willie Peters is in the running for Coach of the Year.
Yeah.
I mean, full credit for Paul Rowley, what he's done. To deal with the chaos and the constant changing team lineups, and to be able to get a tune out of the side and be competitive, not all the time, but sometimes, and to come away with results. There's no doubt Paul Rowley, his stock's risen because he seems to be not only a great coach, a great person, the way he speaks, but when you look at the other contenders, Matty Pete's in there. I can't see how he's Willie Peters. Really, I can't see anyone else who should be named Coach of the Year other than Willie Peters.
No, neither can I. Even with our red and white specs on, neither can I. I really liked we were talking about professionalism, weren't we, in the game, and how people are down in the Southern Hemisphere are taking the mickey out of us a little bit for what's gone on yesterday and the day before. Paul Rowley never lost his professionalism, did he? And even when he was getting battered, you know, the team was getting battered week in, week out, he still maintained that professionalism in his interviews on Sky and stuff like that. He never wrapped hid hand in, you know, what he wanted to say to the owners, his head behind closed doors and all stuff like that, which is the way it should be. So maybe it'd be great, wouldn't it, if there was a special commendation award, you know, and we recognised what he's done this season. That would be great. But I can't see past Willie Peters getting it, to be honest.
Yeah.
Well, when you look at it last year, I mean, Willie Peters won it last year and didn't win a trophy. This year he's won 2 trophies, so how can he not win it? Yeah. It's just crazy, isn't it? But it'd be so Rugby Football League for Willie not to win it, wouldn't it? After winning 2 trophies, it would be so RFL and Super League, wouldn't it? That.
Yeah, and we've got the potential to be, if we do beat St Helens and we get to the grand final, rewinding back to last season, we'll have played in every single game possible for 2 seasons, which is an absolutely phenomenal achievement. And also what's interesting, Scott, is the talk that the World Club Challenge is going to be brought back next season because, of course, the sides in the NRL now are not playing in the Las Vegas, so the sides who are going to win the NRL Grand Final will have a free week. It throws up an interesting conundrum again, doesn't it? Because if it is reinstigated, there's the potential, and this is loose lips, if Rovers do go on and win the Grand Final, a World Club Challenge at Craven Park in 2026. But
that will help.
Yeah,
if there's going to be a World Club Challenge, well, because Rovers are going to Vegas, they can't then go on to Australia. They can't play a World Club Challenge. You just can't. You know, I mean, that'd just be ridiculous. You know, so if there was going to be a World Club Challenge, it would have to be, you know, in the UK.
Well, they'd have to come to us, wouldn't they?
They'd have to come to us, yeah.
Unless,
you know, whether that would...
unless the Rovers, of course, don't win it, and then that changes it. But
course,
if we're looking for our Rovers tinted spectacles and what we want, hey, there's a potential.
We're talking from the perspective of Rovers winning the grand final. You know, if we do end up with a World Club, if we win the grand final, and then let's say, I mean, if we can win the grand final, there's no issue. They can play it in Australia or they can play it at Wigan, regardless. But if it's us that do happen to go on and win the grand final, and we do have a World Cup challenge, it can only be in this country. It can't be played in Australia. We can't be going to Vegas and then flying off to Australia to play a World Cup challenge. Because they'll probably be back-to-back weeks as well, near enough. You know, it'd just be ridiculous. So whether it be, well, I'd like to think it'd be at Craven Park, but I think the demand for tickets for a World Cup challenge against one of them two would be unbelievable, wouldn't it? You know, so would we give up home advantage for a bigger stadium somewhere like, I don't know, Old Trafford or something like that, or even MKM Stadium, maybe with 25,000? I don't know. Would we give up home advantage? Do you want to get 13,000?
If you go back to the days of when they was playing Queensland and the touring sides at Hull Craven Park, the beauty of that was it was at Hull Craven Park, wasn't it?
Hull Craven Park.
You don't give that up. So I
Absolutely.
think, hey, let's hope we're in that scenario. And I tell you what, one person that agrees with you, Scott, about playing the World Club Challenge over in Australia, and that's the person who manages my overdraft. Because
absolutely, yeah. Can you imagine going to Vegas, spending all that money, and then having to fly on to Australia the following week?
Yeah, jeez, yeah. So anyway, let's hope that's a conversation we've got to have in the future. Before we talk about question time and all the other bits, including the news that we've got new sponsors at the club and the off-field work that goes on, which is absolutely fantastic. I still caught up with Steve Till earlier in the week for Robins Revisited. Steve, welcome. Revisited. We've got St Helens up on Saturday. But which game are you going to take us back to involving St Helens?
I'm going to go way back to 1981 when we were the cup holders, and we were in the semi-final in 1981 where we were drawn against St Helens, and 16,900 people flocked to Headingley to watch what was a scintillating game of rugby league. Rovers, as cup holders, as I say, were on top form at around that time, and so it proved. But St Helens were no pushovers, and both sides were playing cut and thrust rugby, but not giving each other a chance to score in the first 15 minutes. But after 15 minutes, Phil Hogan crashed through and gave the ball to Peter Muscroft, the hooker with the winger we'd signed from Hunslet that year, and Muscroft went over for the try, and Steve Hubbard kicked the goal, and he was to kick 4 more, believe it or not. But Rovers were leading until the 31st minute when Harry Pinner caught David Hall on his wrong shoulder and crashed over for a try to be converted by Griffiths, the St Helens Welsh winger. But that was it for St Helens, although it was a close, it was a tight affair. But Rovers opened up in the 50th minute, and 2 quick tries in the between 50th minute and the hour gave Rovers daylight. Steve Hartley scored one of them, and Phil Hogan the second, and then another try from Hartley. But it was the period between the 50th and the 60th minute that really Rovers opened up, and it was the forward battle that had been won by Rovers. Rovers front row, Steve Crooks 𝗀𝗂𝗃 and Roy Allstock got the better of the St Helens front row. And although Lowe and Chris Burton had been kept quiet most of the match, they came into their own towards the end of the match. And Glenn Casey led the pack brilliantly. So it was a terrific performance. It got us to Wembley. Sadly, we didn't win the cup, but to beat St Helens in the semi-final, given the St Helens team of the time, that was a really good performance, and let's hope for more on Saturday. I know one lad will be hoping for more. There was a lad I bumped into in the services yesterday on the A1, and he came and introduced himself as Richard and said he watches the podcast, enjoys the podcast, and he lives in Ripon, big Rovers fan. So let's hope he's celebrating with the rest of us on Saturday.
Great stuff. And Steve, I'll tell you what, because ultimately this could be the last Robins revisit of the season. Of course, we hope it isn't. We hope we've got one more left in us. But when you look at some of the games that the Robins are featuring over the last couple of years, Steve, if we was to do this in 10, 15, 20 years' time, and we look at Robins revisited then, there's no doubt that there's been some exceptional performances, some exceptional games over these last few years.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at this match I've just been talking about, that was a great Rovers team, and many people are trying to compare that Rovers team with this Rovers team. It's impossible to compare because the rules were different, the games were different. Those Rovers players worked for a living. Our team nowadays are full time, but both my generation and the current generation are really enjoying the rugby. And you know, when you think that Rovers have played in every match it's possible to play in since the beginning of last season, it's an incredible performance. People saying Rovers are tiring and that. Well, any team would tire having played in every match since the beginning of last season. It's a remarkable performance, and I go on instinct and gut feeling, and I think we'll win the grand final this year. And I have a feeling, just in my bones, that it might well be Lee that we face. I think Lee might give Wigan a go. But as you say, Chris, the Rovers' performances over the last 2 or 3 years have been outstanding. And yeah, I'm not sure I'll be around in 10 years' time, but if you are and you're still doing the podcast, then you'll find somebody who can just about remember what's happening now.
In one
or 6 leagues.
Dad.
Guys, welcome back to the Robin Pod. Great to hear from Steve Till, of course. What a famous game that was. Scott, what I'll do is, look, the club have announced new sponsors. Of course, we've seen the release, as we record the Robin Pod right now, of a new shirt. A lot of supporters, Scott, will be very happy to see the return of the red band with the white shirt, the traditional shirt that a lot of people remember. Are you pleased to see it back, Scott?
I'm a traditionalist, Jono. I love the red band on a white shirt. I always will. If they released a red band on a white shirt every single season, I would take it. I know they have to change it because they have to obviously, promote a different shirt. They want people not to be buying the same shirt or style every season. But for me, Hull Kingston Rovers, a red band on a white shirt, always have been, always will be. So I love the shirt. It's very similar to the one a couple of seasons ago when we were sponsored by University of Hull. It looks very similar to that. But I just love the simplicity of it. White shirt, red band, sponsor on the band. Perfect. Yeah, I think it'll sell really, really well. And I think from what I've read on social media so far, all the fans love it.
Yeah, and Gary, it's not only the fact that it's a historic shirt, it's a nod to the past. It's the fact it's celebrating 100 years of the Red Red Robin song, which is, of course, our club anthem. And this is where the club, the Offields, they're so in tune with getting things right out there. I think there's been talk in the past about why you're not releasing a white shirt with a red band. And it's probably because they've had the foresight just to wait and release it at the right time. And 100 years of the Red Robin, it's going to feature on the shirt. It's a classic design. I've shown my elder. He says, I want it. Most people are going to go, I want it, because there's nothing not to like about it. It's just symbolic with the Robins. It's old and new, and this is it. We're in a new era with Hull Kingston Rovers, but what the club are so good at doing right now is linking the past to the new. That synergy needs to continue. It's going to be a big seller, and it's at the right time. And no doubt, it's going to be one of the probably biggest selling shirts, because at the moment, every time Rovers release a new kit design, it just flies off the shelf.
Yeah, it's my understanding was that when you asked us to do these podcasts at the start of the next season, we could request a shirt from you.
So, really? Well, you get a shirt. It might not be a Hull Kingston Rovers one, but you can.
I think it. Yeah. For me, I remember walking around the old Craven Park with a non-original Rovers shirt. So I think it might have been a Boise special, with all the signatures on the back that my dad managed to get. He managed to get Mike Smith to do it for me in the changing room, and I walked around that ground like I was the biggest fan in the world. So red and white with a red band, I'm going to buy that shirt every year. They could do 5 a year, and I'd buy them. It's absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, and what's also not just about the shirt, Scott. It's about the fact that they've been able to bring in new investment into the club in terms of the new shirt sponsor, of course, Connections, who've done, invested so much into the club over the last few years. They've still got a presence on the shirt in terms of the back sponsor. Humbeck is a company that a lot of people might not be familiar with, but the fact that the club have been able to engage with them, being able to get sponsorship from them. And what was really interesting, if anyone's listened to the latest Hull Kingston Rovers podcast, when they introduced their managing director, Ashley Cates, not only is he representing the company, he's from East Hull. His family live in East Hull. He said he played rugby league. And it's amazing how far this network of people spreads, isn't it? But this is when I say about you don't realise how much work's going on behind the scenes, Scott. And Jewel knows well through Harrison Solway. It was really interesting, and it was great to see on Instagram people, where's Harrison Solway gone? And they've responded about, we've not gone anywhere. So something's to come, and that's
still got you back.
Yeah,
still got you back.
Yeah, and what's really key to these sponsorship deals is still the community. So the fact we've got Humbeck in, and they can still tie it back into East Hull, is amazing. And the club's got to evolve, hasn't it? And
it does. But that's Hull PR. You read Paul Lakin and Neil Hudgell and even Willie Peters and Elliot Minchella talk about the community of East Hull and how the club is owned by the fans and by the people and how it's steeped in the community. Even when it comes down to sponsorship on the front of the shirts now, there's a link to East Hull. All those sponsors that are on the shirt, there's a link to East Hull. A lot of them are long-term fans who stood on the terraces when they were kids. They want to get involved about being on the shirt of the club that they support. Speak for all those people that are on the club shirt, all those sponsors. They all started on the terraces growing up being the Hull KR fans as East Hull people, and now they're on the shirts. And the fact that the main sponsor is still steeped in East Hull history by, somebody who was in that company being East Hull born and bred, that just sums up Hull KR to a T, doesn't it? East Hull community, the family club, that's what Hull KR is all about.
I've just read I'm just reading the Humbeck press release, and for the journalists, they've said the Robins have the fastest growing social media numbers in the sport and are expected to be the most followed Super League team by 2026. So there's some real foresight there, isn't there, to get involved you know, with a team that's on the up.
Yeah, without a doubt.
Yeah, I tell you what, and as well, getting sponsorship is an art. It's not easy, you know, and you know, the way that, like we said, the way that's going on behind the scenes is absolutely fantastic. Harrison Solway, Scott. I mean, you was at the Player of the Year awards. Let's mention that. We mentioned it previously. What a fantastic event that is, and that's
Brilliant.
Another example of, like I said on the Robin Pod last time out, everyone just gets an opportunity to be part of the club.
Yeah.
No matter how much you spend, you've got an opportunity to be part of it.
It was amazing. It was so amazing to see not only the people and, you know, the 50-odd tables that were on the floor of sponsors and guests and people who bought a table, but the fact you could pay as little as £5 to sit in the Connection Arena and watch those awards. And, you know, those people that were in the seats as well, they were singing Red, Red Robin, and they were singing all the players' songs. And, you know, that just sums up the community of Hull Kingston Rovers, the East Hull community, where, do you know what? Back in the day, and I think you've said it many times, Jono, I think we're one of the unique clubs that, you know, allow all the fans to go along to a Player of the Year awards. It wouldn't happen at any other club. And, you know, whether you're a sponsor and you're putting thousands of pounds into the club a year, or whether you can only afford a fiver to sit in the seats at the back, you're welcome to come to these Player of the Year awards, and you're welcome to observe your team and your players win these awards. It was an absolutely brilliant night. The entertainment was great. The music was great. Of course, it helps that we've won 2 trophies. Of course, it does. Maybe the atmosphere might have been a bit different had we lost to Warrington and Wigan had gone on to win the League Leaders' Shield. It might have been a bit different on the Saturday night. But the fact that both the trophies were there on the stage, it was just a party atmosphere. It was absolutely brilliant night, and in the venue, so well organised. So well organised.
Yeah, great credit to the club. Gary, that brings us to question time. 𝗫𝗂𝗱𝗴𝗲𝗁, great name on Instagram. He says, stealing the idea from the Bench podcast, which, of course, the Sky Sports podcast with Jenna Brooks and John Wilkin, which Paul Lakin's featured on. What do you want to see more of in the game and less of?
For me, I want to see more / better technology for the fans sitting at home. Less, I want to see less back chatting from players that aren't the captain. It really bugs me anyway.
Good point. I tell you what, Scott, I'm going to throw it over to you. What do you want to see more of, and what do you want to see less of?
In regards less, I want to see less players appealing for penalties at the ruck. You know, every player's now throwing their arms in the air. I don't care what club it is, they're all doing it. You know, since all these illegal, and bearing in mind headshots have always been illegal, but now anything even touching a player's shoulder now, you know, arms have been thrown in the air. Penalty, referee, come on. Let the referee ref the game. Just play the game. You know, the referee will give the penalties if they're there. There's too many players now, you know, appealing for this and appealing for that. And even less of, I'd never thought I'd say this in rugby league, but players feigning injury a little bit to try and get players sent off as well. We never saw that in rugby league. That's a football thing. We never saw that in rugby league, but it's certainly creeping in a lot more into rugby league now. Players who are claiming to be injured and they've been hit head-eye, but actually they're just trying to get a player 10 minutes or so.
Waiting for the replay.
Yeah.
Sorry,
I don't like that. I don't like that, Gary. There's a lot of that. What do I want to see more of? I'd agree with technology. I think Sky needs to improve all their camera angles when it comes to scoring. Yeah, is it a try? Isn't it a try? If you look at, you know, the Saints try, was it on the line? Wasn't it on the line? All the grainy final step-by-step images are not good enough, are they? If we're going to start having video refs, well, I know we've got video refs, but the technology has to be far, far superior. So if they're going to start going frame by frame by frame, it's got to be clear. It can't be grainy. And it can't be like as though you've got a shadow on it or something like that. It has to be yes or no. It's definite or it isn't. You know, so I think the technology has to improve. I don't know, really. What I'd like to see more of, I'm old school, mate. I'd like to see more big hits. I'd like to see the shoulder charge brought back into the game, but legally. You know, I don't mean hitting players in the head or under the chin. I'm talking chest. if a player wants to run into you shoulder first and knock you flat on your backside, I still think that should be part of the game. You know, I'm not talking head-hard tackles or leading with your shoulder into heads, but I don't think there's anything wrong with ever leading into your shoulder into a tackle. You know, all this wrapping nonsense. Well, he didn't wrap. Come on, it's a bloody rugby league. You know what I mean? So I'd love to see the shoulder charge reintroduced in the game, but in a safe way.
Yeah, that's it. I want to see less Nigel Woods. I want to see more Paul Lakin, Neil Hudgell. That's what I say. Julie Rodders, who's a great contributor, she says, this is an interesting one. Do we drop 𝗬𝗏𝗏𝗀𝗏 and save him for the final? Fingers crossed we get there. Less risk of a penalty and a ban. Now, what I'd say, I think that question's born out of Gary, is that Jared's not covered himself in glory massively over the last few games in terms of him trying to make things happen.
I also think his reputation precedes him a little bit as well. You know, certainly against Warrington, he never touched him, did he? He never touched 𝗬𝗏, really, when you looked at the replay. I know there was no further action in the review panel, etc. But during the game, I think just play his strongest team and sorry, I've interrupted you a little bit, but just play his strongest team, let it play out. And if he gets suspended, he gets suspended, you know?
Yeah. Do you think, Scott, and this is something I've picked up on, do you think he's trying so hard still? He's trying so hard to make things happen when actually he just needs to play, just run hard, tackle. But he seems to be intent on every time he comes on, making a mark. He wants to make his mark on the game.
Yeah. I think there must be a little bit of element in his mind as well, thinking that, I've only got 5 games to go, 4 games to go, 3 games to go, 2 games to go, hopefully. Now we hope it's 2, and he must be in a situation where he's actually thinking, maybe I need to do a little bit more than I need to, because in another 2 games' time, that's me done, and I'm not going to get another opportunity to do it. So
I need to empty the tank.
Yeah. Let me get everything out my tank, because I've only got 2 games to go. Let me put everything into it. But sometimes that can be at the detriment to, the game and the team sometimes, can't it? I often think, I think we've discussed it before this season on the pod, that Jared seems to go looking for certain teams in certain games. Like when he came on against Huddersfield in that game, Huddersfield of all opponents, it was like a red rag to a bull, wasn't he? And he just went hunting for players, and it was like, what have you got against Huddersfield? So, but I agree with Gary. I think he's sometimes the way he's been in the past and the way he's added suspensions in the NRL, it goes against him a little bit. They can't wait for him to make a little error, can they? And any little error he makes, or any high shot, or anything that looks a little bit dodgy, bang, they're on him, aren't they? So I'd look in the last 2 games.
If you remember, when we signed him, everyone thought he was going to be a penalty machine. He was going to be suspended for, there you go. Final question, Regan Andrews. And he says he probably gets answered on the lead up to the question, blah, blah. But Mickey Mack, if he's fit, does he start? I suppose, Scott, whether he's not fit, he probably starts anyway. Because if you look at the Challenge Cup final, I think they admitted him and 𝗬𝗏𝗏𝗀𝗏𝗏, any other game would have been nowhere near that side.
Which
does throw up a few questions. But the fact that he's in the 21-man squad, he's pretty much playing, isn't he?
Yeah, of course he is. And I think as we've seen him in the early season, he'll do the first 20, 25 minutes, and then Jez will come on and do the last 60, 65. That's what will happen. I even at Wembley, I remember speaking to Sean Kenny-Dowell before Wembley, and I actually said to Skids, I said, it's going to be quite disappointing for somebody like Bill Leyland who will end up missing out on Wembley because Mickey Mack's fit for the final. And Skids' reply to me was, is it? And I said, well, don't you think it's a bit unfair that Bill Leyland would miss out? And he went, Bill Leyland currently is the club's third choice hooker. That's what he was brought in to do. Mickey Mack and Jez Litton are the club's first 2 choice hookers. So therefore, Mickey Mack and Jez Litton will always be your first choice. So if those 2 are fit, those 2 are always going to play. So Mickey Mack will always do the first 20 minutes, 25 minutes, and Jes will do the rest probably. And if you need to bring Mickey Mack on for 5-10 minutes just to kill the game out with his defence, that's what'll happen. But so the plan, Mickey Mack and Jared were brought into this club for the professionalism and to win trophies. We've won 2. Yeah. We're on for the third one, hopefully.
And to be fair, Gary, when you so what Scott's just said there, so if you start thinking, right, the game plan always has been Willie Peters has his team. He's always, this is the team. Do you know what his greatest skill has been? Integrating Eric Dorrough, Jack Brown, Bill Leyland, and actually keeping him in to go. Do you know what? You're not my first choice, but I'd say Jack Broadbent, he's not going to, ultimately, like we've already talked about earlier on in the, he's probably not going to play. But do you know what? He's come and played his best rugby league. And when you start looking at that, you go, wow, what a master of man management that is to keep people involved. And don't get me wrong, success helps that because you've always got someone to point to go, well, this is why I do it. But it takes a lot of balls. It takes a lot of skill to do that. And to bring someone in like Micky McIlorum, who's been out injured and probably, I'd say, is probably 80% fit if he plays on, but he's still keeping people sweet. And there's no doubt if we win, Bill Leyland, for example, will be the first player running on the touchline, celebrating the win. I tell you what, it's a great skill that, and I think that's where we underestimate not just what a great coach we've got, but what a great person, people manager. And there's no wonder there's talk in the NRL about now, is it time he gets a head coach role there because he's doing good stuff here.
Yeah, he's turned us into a not just him, a little bit before that as well, but not a great deal before. I'm contradicting myself. He's turned us from a great team, hasn't he, into a great squad and a great club. And it is a proper leader that does that. I also think McIlorum's got something in his contract, hasn't he, where he could only play in semi-finals and finals after August.
I tell you what, he must have a win bonus.
Yeah, can you imagine Mickey Mack and Jared are retiring with 3 trophies? It'd be unbelievable, wouldn't it? And which is what they were brought in to do.
Yeah,
come and win us some trophies. It'd be unbelievable. Even 2 out of 3 is amazing. So
yeah, no, it's a great point. And hey, let's hope that happens. Of course, so that starts on Saturday when we entertain St Helens at Craven Park. It's going to be another sellout crowd. If you go into the game, we've got one job to do, and that's back the boys, because there's no gimmies. And as much as we might be talking about a grand final appearance, we don't get there without beating St Helens. So we've all got a part to play. There's no chance, we've got to back the boys and cheer them on. And hopefully we're cheering them to a victory. Like I said, if you go in, just make sure you back the boys. But for now, live, love, laugh and be happy.
Them about the exclusive discount they offer Hull Kingston Rovers forever.
Hull Kingston Rovers fight as one for every goal and try. Since '85 we've stood our ground, though trophies passed us by. From Craven Park to Wembley Way, with East Hull grip we fight. Now we rise, our heads held high, proudly wearing the red and white.
The Robin Pod is powered by Budget Tyres Auto Centre. Make them your first and only choice for a vast array of vehicle services. They are a reputable East Hull-based car specialist and dedicated to providing quality services at reasonable prices. And don't forget, they are trusted by the players, club officials and supporters of Hull Kingston Rovers. Find them at 146 Leeds Road and ask them about the exclusive discount they offer Hull Kingston Rovers Forever members.